Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu Stanley Parable. Ja.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Okay, die Rechner ausmachen. Einfach nur die Rechner ausmachen. Diesmal ist der Rechner aus. Das ist nicht gut. Warum ist der diesmal aus? Warum ist der nicht an? Der hier ist an.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ich habe Lust, noch nach rechts zu gehen.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
Ja.
Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Okay, die Türen gehen nicht auf.
Wow. Yes, this room. What a but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Da könnte man auch entlang. Da will ich aber weiterhin nicht lang.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Da unten ging es aber raus. Okay.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ich will aber nicht in den verfluchten Meetingraum.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Diesmal gehen wir die Treppe hoch, weil die Treppe runter ist
Yet
einfach
there
nur
was not a
böse.
single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Voll die Edelbutze hier. Was steht da hinten auf dem Schild? Okay, einfach ins Büro reinlaufen. Ja. Warum wird dieser Panda umgebracht? Das finde ich nicht korrekt. Okay. Gehen wir so schnell ins Büro, auf die Gefahr hin, dass ich nicht mehr rauskomme, weil die Tür
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Nein.
2845. Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself, and Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Gut. Da geht's nicht weiter.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Nein, 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 ich...
Whoops. Nope. Never mind. Stanley actually got back into the elevator and went back up. Silly me. Why did Stanley do that when he knew that it would just lead back to his boss's office? Well, that's a great question. I just can't wait to find out. Here we are, Stanley. It's your boss's office. Exactly the way it was before you got onto the elevator. It's still just exactly what it is. What a decision you've made to come up here and look at the office again. This has fleshed out the plot of the story in new and fascinating ways I could have never anticipated. It's that keen eye for storytelling that you have, an incisive rapid fire of critical plot points, one after the other, weaving a rich tapestry of uncompromising narrative. Wow! I'm bolted to the edge of my seat.
Tja, tatsächlich komme ich hier nirgendwo hin. Dann fahren wir einfach wieder runter.
Incredible. Now he's getting back into the elevator and going down again. Ladies and gentlemen, how does he keep coming up with all of this?
Ich hab's ja versucht, also.
Surely this time Stanley will walk forward into the spooky corridor, won't he? Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape. Mind Door Facility Escape. Aha. Ich will aber eigentlich... Aber das ist Trap. Das ist nicht die Wahrheit. Aber das sieht auch nicht nach Wahrheit aus. Nee, nee. Wir gehen auf den Fake Escape.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Schon wieder sterben. Ja, immer muss ich sterben. Das war ein
The door
Rotz.
behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death. As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly. And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Habe ich jetzt durchgespielt oder was? Ich war schon immer tot. Bis ich zu den 2 Türen komme. Aktenschränke. Bürocomputer. Ein Arbeitsplatz. Und die Bilder waren echt schön. Ja, das war's dann, ne? War ein schönes Spiel, hat Spaß gemacht. 2 Folgen hatte ich durch. Warum kann das Chefbüro so anders aussehen? Ach nee, so sah es am Anfang aus, dann so und schlussendlich so.
Now look closely, Stanley. See how it's impossible for the player to do anything in this room? Perfect example of poor level design. Textbook mistake. It's the kind of thing you'd pick up on intuitively if you had even the most fundamental understanding of good and bad game design. But of course, you being you, you'll probably spend the next hour trying to solve it.
Ja, irgendwie habe ich noch nicht alles ausgereizt, habe ich das Gefühl. Da war ein Button. Ich habe es genau gesehen. Und es gibt Hebel und andere Schalter. Die ich nicht betätigen kann. Nee, hier ist wieder der Aufzug. zu. Aktenschränke offen. Okay. Und wie komme ich jetzt wieder raus hier? Muss ich das Spiel jetzt einmal beenden, oder? Hier waren die Büros, da war der Aufzug. Ah, ein Exit.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let
All of his co-workers were
Ja,
gone.
die sind alle
What
nicht
could it
da.
mean? Stanley decided to go to the
aus.
meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
So, den machen wir aus. Der ist wieder aus. Was ist der hier? Interessant.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But
Ja, die
eager
Lounge
to
war
get back
langweilig.
to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Nee, nicht schon wieder. Ich will gucken, was hier
Stanley was
hinten
so
noch
bad
Schönes
at
gab.
following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot.
Das ist aber
here.
auch nicht toll.
I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Nee, ich will nicht schon wieder in den dunklen Raum. Der hat mir vorhin auch schon nicht gefallen.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha! Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Nö.
Sorry, but you're in my story now. This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Nee, ich drück nicht K. Ich kann Escape drücken. Okay, wir drücken K.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Nö, jetzt drücke ich nicht nochmal Y. Bleibt mir was anderes übrig, außer Y zu drücken? Vermutlich nicht.
But in his mind, in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful, and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Ne, ich werde jetzt auf ihn hören. Ich werde das jetzt nicht drücken. Okay, wir drücken T.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Und ich bin wieder in meinem Büro. Okay, also der Raum oben ist auch los, wenn ich da weiterfahre. Aber ich könnte runterspringen, könnte durch die blaue Tür gehen. Was mir das bringt, ich weiß es noch nicht. Aber das seht ihr vielleicht in der nächsten Folge, wenn ich wieder durch die Büros schreite. Bis dahin, ciao.